Hello everyone, my name is Paul. Welcome on the first video tutorial about the new Gene 2.1 software. Please subscribe to my channel and click bell to be notified about new tutorials and videos. Today I will present what is new in the Gene 2.1 compared with the previous version Gene 2.0. When we place both genes one beside the other, then we can see that there is a new function called rating that appeared between the games and modes, and the rating has 6 different methods ordered from the softest ones to the hardest ones, and they are split it into 2 groups, where the first groups is displaying results in absolute values, and the second group is displaying the same results and the same ratings in the percentages. The percentages, because for example, if we know that 5 hits means the maximum amount of hits, then the 5 hits is equal to 100%, and then for example 1 hit is just 20%, or 4 hits is 80%. So we can select some game. I can now hide the previous version, extend the new version, and we can select the game as we did normally in the previous version, for example Fantasy 5, and then we will select the rating method. Let's say I will select by factorial, and let's print the interface. So this is what is new, that we have these 6 rating methods, and the rest, all the functionality is the same like in the Gene 2.0. It means that also all the tutorials I created before are relevant also for the Gene 2.1 version. Now I will place the numbers of previous draws that I prepared in advance into the input box. And run the Gene. And you can see we are getting some values. I can just pause it, and as we selected by factorial absolute values, we can see here that we have let's say we have here, it's marked that it's the X and exclamation mark X factorial, so we see what rating method we selected. And now you see that if we have 1 hit or 0 hits, it's equal to 1, the value we got 1, not 0, and if we have 3 hits, the value is equal to 6. I will try to run the Gene a little bit quicker, that we get some higher values than we had before. So let's take some small time. Okay, I will pause this, and we look to the best result, where we have maximum amount of hits. And in the Gene 2.0 we just use the values recalculated to percentage 2, 4 and 1, which in reality was 20%, 80% and 10%. For example, 4 numbers from 5 is 80%. But now the value, if we have 2, is equal to, if we have 1, equal 1. But if we have value 4, is equal to 24. So we are getting, based on this, much higher value than we got from this. So this is basically what we got, and how we can distinguish between more hits in the single drawing day than hits in the different days. So we are giving more value to more hits in the single drawing day, so we can keep waves with higher value and score. Let me explain it more in detail right now in the small presentation to distinguish the situation. So on one side we have the case where we have 3 hits in one drawing day and no hits in the upcoming 2 drawing days, and on the other side we have always 1 hit in each drawing day. And when we sum these hits, the sum is equal to 3, and here the sum is equal to 3. And if we calculate the average, so it is 3 divided by number of drawing days, so 3 divided by 3 is 1, and here 3 divided by 3 is 1. But you can feel that this case on the left side, the first scenario, is harder to achieve. To have 3 hits in one drawing day is much harder than to have just 1 hit in each different drawing day. But today we are giving more, or not more, but the same value, and from the first sight and mathematical point of view it's correct. But you can feel also when to get 5 hits it's much more difficult. The maximum amount of hits is much more difficult than to get 5 hits in as assumed at 5 drawing days. So the question is, are really the same? And the answer is they are not the same, and that's what I wanted to distinguish with the new rating function. And this is what I've done. So we got, or I created 5 independent rating methods. They are independent from the amount of balls in the drawing machine. So for example, if we have 2 hits from the drawing machine that have 100 balls, or if it has 10 balls, you have still the same value for 2 hits. The 2 on 2 is 4, so the value is always 4 for 2 hits. And these independent methods are by the value what we have already today, then by the square, so the value is squared, then exponential, factorial, and x powered by x, for example 2 on 2 or 3 or on 3 and so on. So there are 5 different rating methods, and the final one, the 6th one, is dependent on the amount of ball drawing machine. So the rating value for 2 hits, for example, will be different when we are drawing these balls from 10 or from 100. They are also ordered, as I mentioned, from the softest ones, what we have today, to the hardest one, to the probability. Now let's deep more into the values and the rating we are getting. So imagine the scenario, we have history with 5 drawing days, and by the red color I am marking the hits we got. So then the number of hits for the first drawing day is 0, then we have 1 hit, 2 hits, 3 hits, 4 hits, and the sum is in fact in total 10 hits. And then the first method is just by value, so the value when we are rating that is equal directly to amount of hits. This is what we have today, what is in Gene 2.0. So when we have 2 hits, the value is equal to, and so on. And the sum is equal to 10, and divided by 5 drawing days, we are getting value 2. But when we look for the second rating method, it is square. You can already see that 2 hits doesn't mean 2, but 2 on 2 is 4, or 4 hits is not 4 anymore, but it's 16. And if we sum it and divide it by 5, we are getting value 6. So we are giving more value, for example, to 4 hits, and 4 hits will be always much more if you imagine that we have only 1, 1, 1 and 1 hit in the other drawing days. Their sum will be 4 and 16 will beat these 4. And we can continue with the exponential. We are getting much more value. For example, for 3 hits we have value already 20, and the average, the sum is 17. Then the harder is factorial. On this case it's a little bit lower, or it's lower than the exponential, but if we have more hits, then it will overbeat the exponential. That's why is ordered in the position number 4. Then it's the x powered by x. Here we are getting much more value with more hits. For 3 hits we do not have value 9 or 20, but 27, and for 4 hits it's much more significant. And finally there is a rating by probability that it's much more tougher, that for 3 hits we have already value 140, and for 4 hits it's much more, it's more than 2000, and the average is more than 400. So we are giving much more value. And this is the representation in absolute values that you can select from the combo box, and you can get kind of different kinds of rating. But a small disadvantage is that if you get the absolute values, you don't know exactly where you are. What does it mean to have number 2? In my case I would say 5 hits is 100, so number 2 should be 40%, and that's what is now represented. If we select with the percentage, then all the values, the ratings methods are the same, and we get also the same values and comparison, but all the values are recalculated to percentage. So 1 hit is equal to 20%, 4 hits are equal to 80%, and the average calculated from the percentage is equal to 40. So 2 is equal to 40, but for us it's more evident and illustrative that 40 means that we have to hit let's say at least 60%. And now it will become more evident when we select the different rating. But before I explain it, this is what we have today in Gene 2.0, where we are using the value like it is, number of hits, and recalculate to percentage. And now as we look for the x squared rating, we can see that with the same scenario, same amount of hits equal to 10, we do not have 40% of hits, but in reality only 24% of hits. And this is much more significant when we use the rating by probability, that it's dependent also on amount of balls in the drawing machines, that in reality we found less than 1%. So it means we actually, if we have 40% of hits, as we see, in fact we have less than 1%, and we still need to find more than 99% of numbers of hits. It's quite difficult to imagine that, but when you look for the numbers and how hard to achieve these hits in one drawing day, then it's in some way more understandable. If you want to know more everything in detail, how the Gene 2.1 was created from beginning, what was important to solve, and how I struggled to keep the speed and to do all the calculations during the generation, then I recommend to watch all the videos, updates about the research and development of the Gene 2.1 from 1 to 7. So there are all 7 videos. You can watch them from the first to the last one, and you will get really the whole idea about this rating function, because it's not as easy as it looks like when I am showing it like a result. Finally, all is described in the new user guide Gene 2.1, where are new 2 chapters. The first is what is new, where is all the description, and then there is a under function new chapter called rating, where I'll describe all the rating methods and how they are calculated. So there are the formulas used, and finally you can see for the probability formulas with the combinations, and finally there is also the comparison, where you can look what rating method, what value it will finally gives you. So that's all for today, and thank you for watching and your attention. If you missed something, just replay it. If you are new here, please subscribe to my channel, provide your feedback, comments, and I'll be glad for every like I will get from you. Join us on the Facebook page and groups. You can support me on Patreon or via PayPal me. The links are also in the description. And next time there will be second video tutorial called Quick Start. Therefore stay tuned and have a great time.